Hello there, good evening and thanks for joining me in this fresh edition of the program, The Inside on Equinoxe Television. You must have noticed we are in an outdoor production. We are in Bamenda, the chief town of the northwest region of Cameroon, which has been making news recently concerning the strike action by Anglophone teachers in the country that concerns the two regions, the northwest and the southwest. When we talk about Bamenda at this moment, there are three places: the T-junction, the Mobinquen, as well as the hospital roundabout. That is why my guests tonight are presidents of 5 teachers' trade unions in the English subsystem of education. We shall be meeting the presidents of Sewotu, Batu, Piatu, the Teachers Association of Cameroon, TAC, as well as the Cameroon Teachers Trade Union, CATU. My first guest tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is Tame Valentine. He is the national president of the Teachers Association of Cameroon, TAC. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Pleasure is mine.
It's a pleasure welcoming you tonight.
Thank you so much.
Edition of the program. We are very happy to have you tonight to talk about the strike action by Anglophone teachers in the country. Now, why are you striking?
Thank you for giving us this opportunity, sir. I think a series of things, problems, malfunctions or dysfunctions, you would want to call them, which have marred our educational system, especially the Anglophone subsystem of education. These malfunctions were identified as far back as 2004, 2005, 2006, and concerted advocacy began in letters, in memoranda, in the form of protests to get government and government officials know that there was something fundamentally wrong with our educational system. Now, when you look at the law of orientation that governs education in Cameroon, that law of orientation was signed in 1998. It creates, or it erects the subsystem, the subsystems into two: the Francophone and the Anglophone subsystem of education, and both of them with the right to develop its educational processes and its evaluation processes as best they think, the actors. So unfortunately, there are quite a number of malfunctions, like we said, and these malfunctions that begin from the type of teaching that takes place in the classroom to the types of exams that are given to the Anglophone children.
Can you just give us a teaser?
We're going to come to all of those. I was just trying to give you a conspectus, a broader picture first before getting down to specifics. Now, these are malfunctions that have to do with the type of teaching they get, which of course has to do with syllabus, policy, and so on, and even type of examinations which are administered. They reached the culmination with the creation of the schools. Persons actually advocated, and those schools of education were created to take, especially the technical teacher training college in Bambili and later on in Kumba, to take care of Anglophones. Now, one thing was clear, in the days before the coming of these new higher technical teacher training colleges, we had ENS Bambili and ENS Yaoundé, and they didn't have the problems that suddenly beset the ENSs. ENS Yaoundé was for core Francophone teachers, and he used to take in core Francophone teachers, like ENS Bambili used to take in core teachers of the Anglophone subsystem of education. So unfortunately, when this set was created in the Anglo-Saxon university that Bamenda was supposedly, that was supposed to be, the Boya was supposed to be, when this and said these higher technical teacher training colleges were created, it was not only the Francophones that streamed in. Now, these Francophones we are talking about are persons who have gone through the French-speaking subsystem of education. So if you are of provenance northwest, southwest, but you have gone through the French-speaking system of education, then you are considered a Francophone. Likewise, the Anglophone of northwest and southwest origin who has gone through the Francophone subsystem of education is Francophone. That's our definition here. So these schools came, and we discovered that those children of French-speaking instructional language, operational language, they flooded those schools. flooded those schools in their numbers. And we realized that these schools that were created long after independence, maybe to address the issues of especially technical education in Cameroon, and especially for the Anglophone subsystem of education, those schools now became schools where people pushed in their wards, their protégés, their cronies, and so on and so forth. And then the Anglophone children still did not have space. And we realized from the statistics that the Francophones were in alarming numbers in those schools. Now, at the same time, ENS Bambili, Higher Teacher Training College Bambili, which initially did not have the problem of Francophones coming in, suddenly started facing the problem of Francophones coming in. And people were telling us that it's a state university and the state has a right to do what it wants to do with it. And we said, no, this thing is for the Anglo-Saxon subsystem of education. So we had specifics. We realized that the teachers were sent, the personnel sent to these schools, they ended up being Francophones. So the language, the operational language, and even the instructional language in the Anglo-Saxon schools of the schools of education in the Anglo-Saxon university, the language of operation suddenly became French in many cases. That's the first thing we discovered. We discovered also that there were the majority of students who were coming in who were of that Francophone origin. And again, we realized that just any certificate was being used to admit students into those universities. If it's an Anglo-Saxon university, we think that examinations, certificates issued by the Cameroon GCE board and other Anglophone certification agencies should be the certificates that are used to recruit students into the schools.
Even though the University of Boya used to have the students for about 1 month on campus and teach them some few things even before integrating the French.
And that is the kind of injustice we are complaining about. If they can get students for 1 month, 1.5 months, and give them a crash course, and think that they qualify better than those who have been steeped in the culture, then there is a problem somewhere. Then there is every indication that the system is pandering to the whims of one culture against the other. We are operating in a bicultural setup for crying out loud. And in this bicultural setup, we realize that there are 2 subsystems of education for general education, but just one for technical. That is one of the discrepancies we observed. And we said, no. We used to have the LCCI, the RSA stage 1 and 2, City and Guilds. Those were Anglo-Saxon exams. And in those days, there was a blossoming of technical and commercial concerns around the Anglophone setup. But you see, since the introduction of Cap Bac Probatoire, first in 1971, then in 1972, the first batch of students of Government Technical College, Ombe, people wanted to be government trade center. It was not only a government trade center. By 1964, the Americans had helped to raise it to the rank of a government technical college. So, by that 1971, students who wrote from Ombe, all of them passed the cap. All of them passed the cap. Yaoundé took the exam and remarked it. In 1972, they were asked to set. They set. And Yaoundé refused, that the exam was too difficult. But that year again, the students still had 100% in the cap. And finally, what did government do? Government scrapped the cap. They scrapped the LCCI, RSA, and all the others. And they're called foreign exams. And we say, if those ones coming from the Anglo-Saxon setup are foreign exams, then why should Cap, Bac, and Probatoire, which are French of origin, why should they not also be considered foreign? So those are also foreign.
Yes. Now, all this put together, you had a meeting with Jacques Famndongo, Professor Jacques Famndongo, the Minister for Higher Education, on the 13th of December 2015 here in Bamenda. What did he say?
Yes, when we met him, he had a very cavalier approach. He in a very arrogant manner told us that anybody in Cameroon could teach anywhere in any language which was his language of mastery. And we tried to make him realize that there were 2 types of schools. The schools that were purely Anglophone subsystem schools, where somebody teaching physics, chemistry, and all the other French disciplines will not be able to fit, especially as many of those schools in the Anglophone school sector don't have French teachers. When you look at the aspect of French teachers, that's another discrepancy which we saw. So we tried to make him know that there were Anglophone subsystem schools and Francophone subsystem schools. And he told us in a very dismissive manner that we had not gone to teach our chemistry, history, and other subjects in the Francophone zone, and we had been sent away.
And so nothing came out of that meeting?
Nothing came out of that meeting. So we went ahead and said we were going to stop teaching practice in the practicing schools. And the governor heard and invited us for a meeting on the 31st of December 2015, and then again that meeting continued on the 2nd of January 2016, and that meeting took place, began from 1 o'clock and lasted till after 8:36. So you see how long the meeting was, and the people from University of Bamenda were there, but the vice chancellor, the directors of the different training schools, and we think that it was from there now. The minister summoned us to Yaoundé again for the meeting of the 4th. And when we went, we had a number of concessions granted us, which were listed. This can be done, this can be done. I have all of them here. This cannot be done, this cannot be done. So some of the things we were asking for, don't use only MCQs to take in students into our teacher training colleges. Let them be able to use MCQs plus some other evaluation instruments. They accepted. But at the end of the day, we discovered that they went back to the sole method of MCQs for evaluation, which we saw as a problem. So we realized that there's the tendency of giving with the right hand and taking back with the left hand, which pushed us now to get back to the drawing board and say we're going to call the strike. And we did a lot of mobilization, and we brought in the confessional schools and the lay private schools.
Before you go, what is the position of TAC as far as this crisis are concerned?
The crisis is ongoing. We feel that we have dragged the parents and the students so far in. We wish to get something concrete. If we have something concrete that we can show for it, then definitely we will be discussing with all the stakeholders to see how we should work to allow the children go back to school. It must be concrete. Those demands are there, and it is only something concrete from the government that will permit us to sit down now and evaluate the situation and see what we are going to get. Maybe there's nothing concrete yet. The commission has been created, but the commission can still decide. The chairperson can decide not to call the commission to sit, and then we would end up with nothing. So the commission has been created. We have been told we sit in Bamenda, but those are the only concrete, the only near concrete things we have. We want something concrete among the demands, not money, not subvention that was given, but something concrete that is a core issue, so that we can be able to sit down and talk with stakeholders and see whether we leave the children go back to school.
Thank you very much, Tame Valentine. You are the president of Teachers Association of Cameroon, the national president. It was a pleasure having you. We shall be receiving tonight Afo Stephen. Afo Stephen, who is the president of the Presbyterian Education Authority Teachers Trade Union, who will be coming just in a moment after this break. Yeah, welcome back. That was Tame Valentine, the national president of the Teachers Association of Cameroon. My second guest tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is Afo Stephen. He is the national president of the Presbyterian Education Authority Teachers Trade Union in the country. Good evening, Mr. Afo Stephen.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
It's a pleasure having you.
The pleasure is mine too.
Now, this strike action that is being orchestrated by teachers in the English subsystem of education in the Northwest and Southwest regions, confessional trade unions are engaged in this. Why?
Thank you very much for this very incisive question. Teachers remain teachers irrespective of the sector, whether they are government teachers or teachers in the confessional schools. We are getting into the strike because we think that the education of the citizens in the country is a role that teachers must play. And if you would go down memory lane, you will have to understand that education in the country actually was brought into place by the missionaries, and they were the mission They were the missionaries who actually took up the education of the citizens from the base with all the seriousness that we would imagine. So if we are coming in as confessional schools into the strike action, it is because we see the need why we should join those of the government sector to articulate issues that border on education in the country. And first and foremost, you would like to understand that the education of the citizens is the role of the government. The churches are only coming in to assist the government in this function. And if we are joining in this strike, we think it's primordial and very relevant because it is something that has to do with educating the populace. And to have stayed aloof without joining in this strike action would not be very, very good, given that it would mean as if we are excluding ourselves from a national perspective. We really feel saddened by the fact that government is not paying the adequate attention it ought to pay to the denominational institutions that also are helping her in educating the citizens. That was from the word go handled by the churches. So
2 billion francs CFA has been recently.
The 2 billion francs state subvention to the churches is not something that we can go clapping to the government for having done that. It is the government's responsibility to educate its citizens. By giving that, it is supposed to even be an assistance that ought to be more than that amount. So to think that we should be clapping to government for giving us 2 billion as a subvention to lay private and denominational schools is something that is not actually appealing. You would like to understand that in the years before, the government used to give grants in aid because they recognized the role the churches were playing in educating its citizenry. And these amounts could cater for the development of the schools, could cater for the payment of salaries of the teachers, irrespective of those that were given to the government teachers. But inadvertently, issues have turned down to be something different. So that 2 billion that they were announcing and making as if it was a Christmas gift to the churches is not so. It is supposed to be something that is constant, given that the churches are assisting the state in educating the citizens.
But do you have the same problems raised by those who are in still in the English subsystem of education but with the government? Do you have the same, like let me say a school like PCSS Boya will have the same problem like a school like GHS Boya?
They have the same problems, but the issues of the denominational schools like PCSS Boya is a little bit different because there the staff is stable. We do not have a situation like the government schools where there is lack of personnel. In PCSS Boya, all the subjects have their teachers. Where we are coming in now to join is that when these children leave from PCSS Boya, they are faced with competitive examinations into government institutions, where the competition there is open to everybody. They do not now select whether you are coming from a government school or from a denominational school. And this competition now is open. So we think that if we are addressing these issues, it is for the long run that the children who live from our confessional schools should have equal opportunities to get into those government state-run schools in order to meet up with the situation. So to think that they would have only continued from denominational schools and end up at that level is not comfortable. That is why we are joining in the strike, to see that we give a level ground to everybody who will be living from their denominational status to the government.
Now paralyzing activities in these schools, especially most of them are boarding schools. You are paralyzing activities there. What are the administrators or the clergymen saying? We'll talk of the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon, Right Reverend Dr. Funky Samuel. When you look at other areas, you look at the Baptist Church, the president of the Baptist Church, and the Catholic Church. What are they saying?
Before we went into this strike action, we actually made them to understand the intricacies of what was happening. You would not imagine that students from our denominational schools come out with 25 points from the GCE. But when they go to write public examinations like the entrance into the medical school, they cannot pass. But people who have barely 4 papers, 4 points, are those who make it, which means that there is something fundamentally wrong. That merit is not recognized. So we want to bring in a system where merit should be recognized so that those who perform, it is an aberration to think that somebody who has 25 points will go and write a simple entrance examination into professional school and fails. But those who actually have lesser points are those who make it. This gives us the idea that it is he who can pay that goes into these issues. So if we of the confessional schools are joining into this strike action, we think that there should be a level field where merit is recognized for the better people to get into those.
Your stand is strike continues until something concrete is given to the teachers.
The strike has to continue. We think that if the strike continues and this government is a government that listens to the people's cry, they should see that it is adequately handled so that what we are seeing surrounding the educational domain of the country is corrected. And I would like to bring your attention to the fact that one of the issues that is very preoccupying and is very disturbing is the fact that this country does not give recognition to religious studies. And you will understand that those who are front pew Christians in the churches are members of government. If they have to take decisions that border on education in the country, they should think that religious studies is a fundamental base that brings in morals. So it is very disturbing that some of them who are those front pew Christians, when it comes to policy making on educational issues, relegate those areas to the background and do not see why. So I want to thank you and to say that I'm using this platform to call on the government to see that religious studies should be recognized as an academic subject which should count.
Can be used as a prerequisite to enter into a university.
Into a university. Why not even creating a faculty of religious studies in the universities? So these are some of the issues that are very disturbing that actually warranted us of the confessional schools to join in this strike action.
Thank you very much. Afo Stephen, you are the National President of the Presbyterian Education Authority Teachers Trade Union. It was a pleasure having you on the program, The Insight.
The pleasure was mine. Thank you very much.
We shall equally be having this evening a representative from Batu. It is the Baptist Education Teachers Trade Union this evening, just after this break. Welcome back. I'm receiving tonight the representative from the Baptist Teachers Trade Union in Cameroon. Tonight, Mrs. Ndijoy is representing the president. Good evening, madam.
Good evening, Mr. Ford.
It's a pleasure having you tonight.
Pleasure is mine.
Now, you are here to talk not only on behalf of Baptist Teachers Trade Union, on behalf of the consortium and the Teachers Trade Unions as a whole, concerning what happened on the 21st of November. We should say this was the starting point in what is known today as a violent strike action that could lead to a concrete solution to the problems faced by teachers.
Yeah, you say it's violent. It did not actually start on the 21st. I think that the teachers, they started sending out signals to the powers that be when they were celebrating. I don't know whether to say whether we were commemorating or celebrating the Teachers' Day on the 5th of October, a month before this day. We wrote it, it was presented on Teachers' Day and to the whole world, not only in this region, that teachers are to go on strike come November 21st, and they gave reasons as to why they had to go on strike. And this strike finally came into existence on the 21st. And you know, the powers that be, it's like they were thinking that it's like a dream, but everybody has decided to take destiny into his or her own hands now and see that we should stop daydreaming. So because they thought that it's just a child's play. You know that there's a proverb that the dog, you know, the little dog has been playing with the mother and licking its anus, and one day what happened? It impregnated the mother. So that is how it started. On the 5th, these signals were sent out. On the 21st, it finally came to its apex when somebody came in and championed it. Actually, the teachers said they were going to sit in. It is sitting in. And the learners too were supposed to stay at home. Up to this moment of my talking, I don't think any teacher has gone out to the street to cry out. We have made our points. We have written to His Excellency. Even on the 26th of October, a letter was drafted and sent to the Prime Minister, whom I think is the head of government. They are all aware of our cries. So, and we have tried. We have taken every effort to negotiate, because we know that this is still part of negotiation. And on that 21st, we gave that date so that if they did not meet the teachers' demand, I think that it was just this strike that
now on the 8th of December, were you also part of it? Were the teachers part of the strike action on the 8th of December?
I think that the answer is blowing in the wind. It is not because of the teachers per se. We were sitting at home and watching. You know, it is on the 8th, people, mankind, everywhere, like others, they decided that they were going to come out. And I don't know, the CPDM, maybe I should call a name, because I think that it is due to that.
Call a spade a spade?
Yes, call a spade a spade. You know, they said they were going to come and march, and I don't know, everybody was busting out from his own direction. I think they say it's peace. I don't know whether that was a message of a peace that they were coming. Why now, on that 8th? So that everybody, I want to think that you are here in Bamenda, in the region, how I think that driving from wherever you have come from, when you reach somewhere around Babaju, the road ends there. It's no longer the teacher's problem. We know that it is education. Everybody is just bursting out from his own. It's an Anglophone problem at that point, because we like teachers, if they come in to also say that they want to add their voice, every other person is coming out from his own little corner to cry out. I think that the people, you would agree with me that it's like this part of the country is a different country in its entirety. I think so.
Now, but schools in some parts of Cameroon are still going on. In Limbe, we've had several reports that students were going to school, teachers were there in school.
We did not say the students are still in school. Are they boarding schools, maybe sitting in schools? I want to think that we have preached out the story that people should stay in, whether they are in school, they are reading their books, and it is not like they are learning. Even at home, they are still continuing to be educated, and we are still having our voices. Everybody is coming out. Maybe the person, the guy who championed, we have gone to the 8th. What about what happened on the 5th? It was not even a student, as I hear. The guy who came out in a coffin, was it a teacher? I don't know. So that was on the one of those days when the guy came out. That was on the 21st. Sorry, on the 21st. You know, many things have come up within this period. So, but people are yet, I made the statement that people are still living in illusion. When the time will come, you will wake up from this reverie. You will wake up from this sleep. If some people are going, you see that other parts of the country, they have queued in. What about the case in Motengene, in Kumba? It's not, I don't know. I think you've heard of it also.
Of course. Okay, so the Baptist Teachers Trade Union is giving its unflinching support to this strike action.
I think so.
All right. Okay, it was a pleasure having you. It was a pleasure having you, Nzijoy. You are representing the national president of the Baptist Teachers Trade Union. That was it. With her, we shall be getting a representative from the Catholic Teachers Trade Union in this edition of the program, The Insight. We shall be right back. Yeah, welcome back to join me. You're watching The Insight on Equinoxe Television. We are inside Bamenda, the chieftain of the northwest region of the country. We are talking English teachers or Anglophone teachers problems in the country. And after the representative from the Baptist Teachers Trade Union, we have the national president of the Catholic Teachers Trade Union, the national president, who is Mr. Kim Fon. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Hansen, for Hansen.
It's a pleasure having you tonight.
It's my pleasure.
Sewotu, Setu, which name should we call?
As you rightly said, I'm the president of the Catholic Education Workers Trade Union, specifically in the Diocese of Bamenda. Recently, after our creation, along the way, we decided to switch our name, as our constitution said. So wanted the name, the profession to be very specifically indicated in our name. So we changed the name. We requested for the change of name from Catholic Education Workers Trade Union to Catholic Teachers Trade Union, SETU. We have had authorization already. It is with us. We have been given that authorization and that permission to go ahead by the Ministry of Labor and Social Security or by the Register of Trade Unions. So, and we are still preparing documents for the change of name. Right. So, but for now, since we started this struggle using that name, Sewotu, we continue to use it for the meantime.
Okay, now with you, we are looking at the meeting that took place on the 26th of November 2016 with Prime Minister Philemon Yang when Yaoundé finally decided to move to Bamenda because the people in Bamenda said Yaoundé should move to Bamenda and it was some sort of a fight. Finally, Bamenda won when Yaoundé came to Bamenda. Now, what did Yaoundé say?
Yeah, the meeting with the PM on the 26th of November was really a very, very long meeting. Very long, because we were supposed to be there at 8 o'clock, and we finally met the minister at 1 o'clock, because the minister, in addition to meeting the teachers, was also to meet the various opinions in the Northwest region, traditional rulers, political rulers, religious rulers, and all that was got. But finally, the Teachers Trade Union that called the strike met the PM at 1 o'clock, and it was a 4-hour meeting with heated debate. During that period, the Teachers Trade Union made a good number of presentations. The first one was to bring out all the malpractices, all the adulteration, the marginalization that have existed in the English subsystem of education over the years. That long history was given with concrete examples. And the PM looked to be embarrassed by some of the examples we gave, which were real. So after that long presentation of the various attempts the government is making to marginalize and distort the Anglophone subsystem of education, then the next presentation was the various steps the trade unions have taken to resolve those problems peacefully through a series of memos that they have sent to government hierarchy, sometimes meetings that were called, as we heard from Tamin, with the Minister of Higher Education, with the governor, and all the resolutions that were taken, we end up in the dustbin. So we explained that to the minister, to the Prime Minister, head of government, and to let him understand that before we came up to this point, we have made every attempt to settle the matter peacefully to no avail. Now the second issue was we also tried to explain to the minister why we could not come to Yaoundé for a meeting he convened in Yaoundé to be headed by Yak Famendongo. We gave reason why we could not go to that meeting. And one of the most important reasons was that the committees that the minister created to be headed by Famendongo we did not see that as a committee that can bring out any justice. First and foremost, Minister Famin Dongo is the master planner behind this marginalization of Anglophone system of education. And he cannot sit as magistrate and defendant, because we thought that he could come and defend himself why he decided to do what he did to the English subsystem of education. But when the government created, when the PM created the committee and put him as chairman, we already saw that he was a window skin, a smoke screen that nothing will come out. After all, he himself personally had expressed that he sees nothing, that is no problem with the English subsystem. So that's the reason, one of the reasons why we rejected that. And we also rejected the venue of Yaoundé, because we were not sure of our security in Yaoundé, given what our lawyers went through in Buea. As lawyers, if they were handled in Buea like that, then the common teachers could be given the worst treatment in Yaoundé.
But can you confirm that here in Bamenda, a close aide of Philemon Yang were forcing you people to call off the strike action? We understand that there was another subcommittee created during the meeting of Philemon Yang. You went and drafted a memorandum somewhere, and that a close aide of Philemon Yang was pressurizing you to call off the strike action. Yeah,
the whole purpose of the government was to get the strike action call off. That is why. So if a close corroborator came up with that, it was in line with government intention to call off the strike. Government didn't really have a goodwill to solve the problems, but they wanted the strike to be called off. And the reason why the teachers too resisted, because they couldn't call off the strike without having anything concrete. So that is why in the meeting with the Prime Minister, we went for something concrete. And we requested the Prime Minister to create a different committee, putting in a different chairman and bringing in other committee members, which the Minister accepted. Then also, we went into a time frame, a chronogram, a time frame within which that committee could work. Because in Cameroon, it's very common to have a committee. You don't know when it will finish in work, know when it starts, when it finishes, it can go on forever. So our intention was to limit that committee, the time frame, to work within 1 week. That we were struggling to do with the PM after the creation of the committee. We also requested from the PM that after creating the committee and putting the time frame within which the committee should work, the PM should opt to do concretely, to solve concretely one of our demands that we tabled to him on our strike notice, strike call. That was where we really had a serious bone of contention. For the opinion of teachers, as far as teachers' training were concerned, the most aching problem was the teaching of Anglophone children by Francophones. What I mean by Francophones are those who grew up in the French subsystem of education and learn the material in that system, speak the language of that system. You know, there are two languages. The French speak the French, Francophones speak French, Anglophones speak English. And the material they learn is also different. Geography in the Francophone system, you know, the same geography in the Anglophone system. So we said that by taking somebody from one subsystem to teach in another subsystem, create a problem, at least at two levels. There may be a linguistic problem, and there may be a content problem. He may know how, he may be able to speak English, but may not master the material content that subject demands. For example, history. If a child, a Francophone could say that in history, 11 February is the day the East Cameroon annexed West Cameroon. But that's not a historical fact. It's not. Sure, that child does not have the fact.
Okay, so finally the meeting, nothing concrete came out of the meeting.
On that day, the first day ended, nothing concrete came out. So we went on recess. Then came the second day, and we gave a concession on the second day. Now, the minister complained that redeploying teachers within the year was going to cause a problem. We said, okay, that he should go to the list of the problem we presented and pick out one that he can do immediately with immediate effect before the 30th, so that when that one is done, we can now suspend the strike, and then the committee can start work. In our mind, we were talking about one of the problems relating to the English subsystem of education. Although we put the issue of subvention inside, you could say that the issue of subvention is not a peculiar issue for the English subsystem. It is a national issue.
And so the 2 billion francs CFA.
So they went and took but that one. And then to make matters worse for us, the teachers that were struggling that they should redeploy from here, they created another text saying that they were going to recruit 1,000 bilingual teachers. And we know very well that in Cameroon, there is no school that trains bilingual teachers to teach chemistry, to teach history, to teach geography. There's nowhere. So we didn't know where these people were trained. So that is how the deadlock came with the Prime Minister's meeting.
Thank you very much, Kim Fon of Setu.
Yes.
That's Setu that will be coming in the days ahead. For now, we know about Sewotu, Catholic Education, or Catholic Workers Trade Union. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Okay. And we shall be having the Executive Secretary of Cameroon Teachers Trade Union, Katu, that is Wilfred Tassang, who is going to be my last guest tonight in this series of interviews as far as Anglophone teachers' problems are concerned in Cameroon. Stay with us. My final guest tonight is the Executive Secretary of the Cameroon Teachers Trade Union, Katu. His name is Wilfred Tassang. This is somebody who have been seen on the scene since the strike action began, engaged or orchestrated by teachers in the English subsystem of education. Wilfred Tassang, good evening.
Good evening, Hansen.
It's a pleasure having you tonight.
Once more, the pleasure is shared.
Now, I've discussed with your colleagues. You are the Executive Secretary of Cameroon Teachers Trade Union. We need not go into other nitty-gritties. Tell us what has been happening with the meeting you had with the Director of Cabinet at the Prime Minister's office, who is the President of the ad hoc committee put in place by the Prime Minister.
Yes, after the meeting that we had with the Prime Minister proceeded to create an interministerial ad hoc committee to which we all have been appointed, and equally announced that government was giving special subventions to private education. That was one of our grievances, quite all right. But what spoiled the cake was the announcement of a special recruitment of bilingual Cameroonians to teach the sciences and technical subjects. We are into education. We have a situation where we don't even have teachers of French to teach Anglophone Cameroonians. And so we don't have a college that trains bilingual science teachers and bilingual technical teachers. And so we took exception to that announcement because we interpreted it to mean, and rightly, that government wanted to reinforce the presence of Francophone teachers in Anglophone schools. Yes. And so we rejected it, and that's where we got a stalemate with the government wanting us to suspend the strike, saying that they have met their side of the bargain. And we are telling them that they have instead shown bad faith in announcing that they want to bring in more Francophones. And so we cannot suspend the strike with that announcement. They should change it and make it to read that they will be recruiting Francophones. They will be recruiting Cameroonians to teach Anglophone children, with the understanding that these people recruited will be Anglophone Cameroonians, people who have studied in our subsystem. The Minister Director of Cabinet said the Prime Minister could not change what he had written. And so we too said, we too cannot change our position. The strike has to continue. That is where we are.
Now, there was a media outing by the Director of Cabinet at the Prime Minister's office. You did not welcome this media outing?
To us, we describe it as outrageous. And that shows that the government is completely insensitive to the plight of the people. One would expect that when a father gets home and meets the son who has picked a nail under his foot, and the son is crying, the first thing the father should do should either be to pull out the nail or rush the child to the hospital to get a solution. But here we are with a father who is telling a child if you don't stop crying, we will not take you to the hospital. It's simply outrageous, irresponsible.
Okay. And so he's asking you to stop the strike action
before he can convene the ad hoc committee. we think that a professor, and a professor of chemistry of his caliber should know better. You don't bring politics into education. We are talking education and they are politicking. We expect that academics like him should help this government and tell the government the truth. But we are faced with a situation where our professors in Cameroon dissemble all the time. They lie all the time. They speak with water in their mouth all the time. It's not helping this country.
Now that you are a member of the consortium put in place, a consortium including lawyers, teachers associations, trade unions in the English subsystem of education, as well as Anglo common law lawyers, you are equally a member of that ad hoc committee put in place. How are you going to work with these two?
The consortium we are putting in place is intended to make sure that these grievances are addressed and that the solutions that we shall have will be long-lasting. So it's a consortium that will be permanently there to make sure that we don't have further encroachment into our culture once we have the solutions. The ad hoc committee, we are waiting for it to be convened. We will get in there and we will get the solutions that we want with timelines for their implementation. And we have agreed with the Prime Minister that each time that a timeline is breached, we would have the right to make recourse to industrial action.
Which means, from what you are saying, students and people should be smiling back home. The strike action will be called off.
The strike action would be suspended when and if the committee meets and deposits its report with timelines for implementation. If that does not happen before the beginning of the second term, we just may not have schools resuming.
You're serious?
Very. Just as simple as that.
The academic year will be a disastrous one. We have seen the first term, which is down.
To us as teachers, trade union leaders and teachers, it won't be disastrous. It's just a fight that we are putting on to make sure that these children have decent education, and that when they have this decent education, they will have jobs thereafter. You know that Anglophone children, since independence, if you had to become an engineer in this country, you are Anglophone, your father had to pay an extra bill for you to go out of the country. Yes. Do
you know that politicians are saying that you are taking the teachers' problem to equally pass your political agenda? You are calling for federalism. Are you in favor of federalism? Because the only sees federalism as secession.
Our grievances are purely educational grievances. However, we have taken note of the fact that our community wants federalism, and we as union leaders can't be indifferent to that. Federalism is a system of government that is best adaptable to the Cameroonian situation, where you have two cultures that are constantly clashing. You know, every 10 years, every once in a while, issues raise up because all the ministers of education are francophone. They come up with fresh ideas to assimilate the English subsystem of education. In the federal structure of government, they won't be able to do that. That's why the federalism is so important for us. However, we are conscious that federalism is not an issue for now. But the reforms that we want in education are issues for now, not tomorrow.
Okay. So, Wilfred Tassang, you are confirming, like the Executive Secretary of Cameroon Teachers Trade Union, that the strike continues. Second, it will only be called off if something concrete is given to the teachers.
Yes. In our last union leaders meeting, we agreed, even as we had agreed with the Prime Minister, that if the Prime Minister were to solve one of the core problems that we raised before the ad hoc committee meets, we would suspend the strike. So we are still waiting for the Prime Minister and the government to solve one of those core problems. And the core problem that we have here is the withdrawal of Francophone teachers from teaching Anglophone children, and the withdrawal of Anglophone teachers who have been deployed in Francophone regions to teach Francophone children subjects other than English language. So we need to readjust, withdraw these two, and send them to where they belong. We are not saying that Francophones should be taken out of the Northwest region. No. We are saying that in a school like GBHS, downtown Bamenda, for instance, where you have francophones teaching anglophone children, they should remove those francophones and send to the francophone department of that school to teach francophone children. That's what we want. If that is done, then the unions will consider effecting a technical suspension, seeing that we are already on holidays. That should enable people to have holidays without the ghost of the strike haunting them, and probably for Minister Gogomo's ad hoc committee to meet. But his committee...
And for you to save your prime minister. Last time we heard somebody saying that you people should call off the strike to save your prime minister, son of the soil.
It is not about the prime minister. If he's the prime minister, son of the soil, then he is better placed to understand the grievances of the people and to solve them. But so far we have not seen him as that prime minister, son of the soil, or anglophone prime minister.
Are you not seeing that his hands are tied?
If his hands are tied, then he should resign.
Okay. We'll end it there. Wilfred Tasang, it was a pleasure having you and a host of others who have been here to give our televiewers just the best and what they need to know, the A to Z, as far as the teacher strike action is concerned in the English subsystem of education, the Northwest and the Southwest region. Before we go, maybe last words?
Last words to the teachers and the learners and the parents, that we should be steadfast, we should remain committed. The unions will always have the last word to say on this matter. Okay. Until we speak and until we say so, the strike continues.
That was it. We were inside Bamenda, chief town of the Northwest region of the country, in this outdoor production of the program, The Insight on Equinoxe Television. Take our rendezvous next week, Sunday, same time, 6:30 p.m., same channel, Equinoxe Television. Bye now.